Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to another live stream. Today, flying this rather lovely retro Alitalia Airbus A321 from Genoa, where we left it last time, along the south French coast over to Barcelona. As I always say at the start of these things, I am a real world Airbus pilot, but this is not for any real world use, just for our home use and explain, and hopefully gives you a few extra ideas and context about the ToLiss Airbus A321. Now, I'm hoping I've got the audio right. We had a slight crisis just before starting this stream where I couldn't get any audio to work. It turns out if you mute your microphone and a few other things, then yes, that's going to happen. So I'm hoping we've got over it. Do please feedback any audio issues as ever, and we're doing our best. Something else that's new today, we've changed our overlay after a few perfectly valid comments about its ability to burn itself into your retinas over time. So hopefully this one's a little less obtrusive and a little more pleasant on the eyes and perhaps your screens as well. Hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us today. I see Ariel F mentioned that they couldn't be with us because they're busy elsewhere, and I know a few other people are, but thank you very much for coming on your Friday evenings. Good evening to Captain K, Richard V, long-term viewers, Matteo Chewy, who's been working hard on the Discord with the checklist. I'll talk about that later on as we go through the flight. Of course, thank you for Dougal and Liz for moderating for this stream. It's very kind of you guys. And yes, I see that Matteo's been falling in love with the MD-80. That was on sale. I know a few of you have been looking through the sales as xplane.org had theirs going. Good morning to Flats 40. Thanks for joining us on this morning. Zach is ours. It's very kind of you to come along. And Ian Morris, all long-term viewers I recognise. Theo, thank you for coming. And Swappy S, of course, another classic viewer. So excellent. Right. What we're going to do today, something slightly different, is because it's quite a short flight, I'm only expecting about an hour and 10 for our hop over to Barcelona, is we're going to do it by starting off cold and dark. I also, due to the issues, am not on VATSIM just yet, so we'll get that up and running soon. So let's see if we can get this to work. So here we are on the flight deck, and yeah, we're parked up pretty much where we were last time. I'm not sure if it was stand 405 exactly, but this is where we are. And what I'm going to do is sort of just go through a fairly quick cold and dark setup, and then I thought we'd do a manual engine start because that question's come up on the Discord, and it's quite an interesting one, something we haven't talked about before. So we come into the flight deck, and you'd start off by putting up your QRH. And on the Airbus, we do some things from the QRH, some things from memory, and then back to the QRH for the later bits and the checklist and so on. So let's see what happens if we come in through here. I've got a few problems with checklists today, so this may not work for us. Let's see if I can get that to work. That's going to be a plugin admin. And I think it's been, no, it should be running. Okay, well, we may have to abandon that for today. Sorry, everyone. That's a bit embarrassing. As I've said before, yeah, not having it. There is a checklist available on the Discord. It's pinned into the references section, and that can take you through. It's a full procedure, and also Matteo, who's been kindly working on it, has also included the checklist if you need that. So we're going to check up that we've got. I'm just going to roughly go through what we would check in case you don't want to go through the full procedure. We would check that we've got our voltages above 25.5 volts, otherwise they need charging, and we do. So we can turn on. Well, before we do that, even I'm also going to check the wiper selectors are off. I want to check the landing gear levers down. Don't want to apply power to the airplane before that's done. Weather radar off. We don't want to radiate anybody. Parking brake is set. So we're in pretty good shape. Flaps are at 0, speed brakes disarmed. Let's get the batteries on and powered up. So first one comes on, second one comes on, and here we go. Start to warm up. When we're happy we've got all the bits in the right place, we can stick on the external power. You get that big clunk as the relays all change over and so on. And here we go. Now, there are a couple of other items, but I won't spend too much time on it today. We've got a few things to look at. So let's go through our flows. On the Airbus, we start on the bottom here, work our way up, and then same again on the middle section of the overhead panel, and finally on that far right. Now, I know I've done this in the cold and dark videos, so I don't want to bore you guys with it too much. So crew supply would typically be off. That's the oxygen supply to the oxygen masks. So you'd have to turn that on. Ground control can go on, and you test it. You should hear a beep. Thank you very much to Alraber for subscribing. I'm hoping that today we have no more lag between the two situations. I know it's been a problem in the past, so let me know if the quality's gotten worse. Yeah, sadly, we've had a bit of trouble with that in the past. But fingers crossed we can get this going. Right, these fault lights will be here naturally, that's expected. And then we can go through here. This can be captain or captain and purser for the evac horn. It doesn't really matter. That'll be an airline preference. I know some airlines like it for just the captain. Some allow the captain and purser position. If the purser can do it, that means the cabin crew could also set off the evac alarm. Right, we'll start that to align. You set it to nav number 1. It says on bat for a bit, and then that'll go out. Then we can do number 2, wait for the on bat light to go out, and then we can do number 3. It's quite funny. That's a little known sort of rule, and it's not always easy to find. But if you do try and do all 3 in the real aeroplane while the bat light is still on, typically it isn't uncommon for just the align to fail and you have to start again. It's quite time consuming because that needs to sometimes be there for quite a while. Yeah, 12 minutes, that sort of thing. Okay, strobe lights will go to auto. We're not going to use them yet. Let's get the smoking signs on and arm the emergency exit lights. You need those armed before any passengers are on board. That way, if the airplane loses power, there'll be lights in the cabin for them to get out. So quite important. Check that this is set to auto in the pressure page, and we've got none of these on. We don't need the pro window heat. Air conditioning, nothing really to change here. Just set temperature and so on as you desire. External power obviously on. Batteries, what we'd end up doing in the real airplane is we would just bring this up. Let's brighten up some of these screens. I forget how advanced the ToLiss is, having to do all these little bits as well. Typically, I'd have terrain on full brightness as well, to be honest with you. And we'll go up here, and then you turn it off, and you just want to check that when you turn it back on, the amps aren't too high, because that would mean it still needs charging, but no, pretty low. 0, so there you go, fully charged. Fuel pumps, they can go on now. And do the engine fire tests. A little hard to show. I can show you on the eCam page, but the ToLiss does a good job here. You get the engine fire warning, the lights. Both bottles should arm and light up, and you'd also see this little fire light on the pedestal down here, which is a useful button just to show you which engine is actually on fire, because obviously it'd be quite easy or quite concerning to get the wrong one. We're also going to do the APU one as well while we're up here before we can start that. Over here, not really much to do, but we're going to use the engine man starters. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's engine man start 1 and 2. We'll use those later, and one mode not going to be used today. That's only on the IEE aircraft that's there. Ventilation should all be out, and that's pretty standard for the Airbus. We just don't really want any lights. Great. Okay, so that's all aligning. Bring up the MCDU and start brightening it up. Now I'm going to do this slightly out of order now, but I just don't want to have you guys sitting there for too long. It looks like the chatbot isn't working for us today, so apologies for that. That's a little bit frustrating. Let me just see if I can get that going for you guys. They should be there. I did have it all set up. Let's have a look. I do apologize, guys. This is a little bit frustrating. And let's have a look. It is on. It should be set as a moderator. Commands are available. Right, I'm sorry guys, I'm not sure why the chatbot is unable to talk to you. It really should be working. You're welcome to try again now. If you try !Discord or !Flight plan, hopefully it'll bring you the flight plan. Otherwise, I will show you guys very shortly what the route we're taking today will be. Okay, so let's go into our MCDU. We're going to start with aircraft status and just check through as per normal. Looks like it's still not working for you guys. Apologies for that. Right, I'll have that sorted for next time. Oh, no, there we go. Finally, excellent. Okay, so yeah, we've got the right AirX cycle and the dates are valid. This idle performance figure, we're not going to touch. That will be for the engineers. Next, we go to init A. So we're routing from Lima, India, Mike, Juliet to Lima, Echo, Bravo, Lima, Genoa to Barcelona. Flight number today, well, I thought we'd just tie it in with last time, so we're going to be Alitalia 216, so the next number along. And let's bring up our flight plan. Cost next today of 12, quite nice. Cruising flight level 330. And that temperature I'll leave to autofill. Alternate is, I believe we're using Alicante, LEPA. Oh no, I've got that wrong. Palmer, LEPA. There we go. Align IRS. Depends. Yeah, aligning IRS is something you typically have to do, and it's not something I usually show on these streams. You can enter the coordinates as well, but it should align using your position once you enter the airport. And you may find now that in position monitor, once it's aligned, is about a mile out or something, because it just uses the reference point of the airport, which might not be your stand. but it will update when you take off anyway, as long as you've got GPS. Let's also load in the winds while we're here. There we go. And that should be our init day. So it's time for the flight plan. And let's have a look. We are departing from, and let's just check the weather so you guys are as aware as I am for that. Yes, it is a long flight plan today. I'm sorry about the length of it, but here we go. Right. So it's a light easterly wind. So I'm planning on, I think we're just going to use runway 28 to take off. It'll be a little bit quicker for us, and then we can head out to sea and then head north. So we'll do that. I will just check actually that we don't have any reason for or any ATC to ruin that. And you guys will probably tell me on VATSIM I shouldn't do it like that. I'm not entirely sure. Let's connect in. I did file a flight plan already. No, there's still no controllers here. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Oh, let me move that out of the way of the overlay. Sorry for that. Yeah, so we'll depart from runway 28 and we're going to use the Largan 7 kilo. If we look on here, now this sometimes doesn't work until certain things are aligned, but there we go, it seems to be working. So from there, Largan, as you guys have already spotted, quite a long route this one. It must not be that common to use. There's no long airways we can use. Mike 859 to VAM2. And then we're going to take the upper mic 984 to colon. I'm not sure where they got that name from, but there's all sorts of interesting names out there in these waypoints. Upper Zulu 81, not 817, 814 to Gangu. And upper mic 984 to Divco. Upper November 975 to Bisbat. So not too bad to enter really. A lot of airlines will have that just download via the A cards. Oh, hold on, Gangu. I've missed one. Sorry guys, this must be interminable. Upper November 97 from Gangu. Upper mic 984. There we go. That's the missing one. Divco. Yeah, a lot of airlines you can just download this via ACARS, which makes it quite easy. Doesn't seem to like that. Let's see what happens. And then finally, upper November 975 to Bisbat. This might work. Excellent. Bisbat. Okay, there we go. So that's in there. And expecting some sort of arrival. Let's make sure we get the right one. So flight plan, destination, arrival. And I'm not entirely sure what they're using there. So let's work on the worst case. That'll be RS25 right Zulu, which will be pretty much a straight in. And we'll plan on a Bisbat 1 Zulu arrival. So something like that. Seems reasonable. I know V1 Simulations, he was doing a great idea for a stream yesterday. He was talking about air traffic control. And it seems that in America, you wouldn't enter even the route. You might do the SID and the star, but not the route until you've got your clearance. Whereas in Europe, it's very rare to have your airways clearance changed. So that would be our clearance after the SID. So the runway and the SID, yeah, happens quite a lot. But I can't think of a time where they've changed the en route clearance, because that would usually involve then having to go to the company, getting a new flight plan, getting new fuel figures. But it sounds like in America, maybe these things do change a little more often. So yeah, it was very interesting. If any of you are interested in learning a bit more about ATC. Right, so that was the flight plan. So secondary, I'm going to copy the active into there. Now, you could put a return in, and in an airport like this, if we have a look at that departure, something worth noting for Geneva, this would probably have an emergency turn of some kind. So although the SID will be rated for an engine failure, you obviously can't just carry on flying if we had an engine failure on takeoff. You couldn't just fly all the way back around and up to Largan. So it would probably involve going to another waypoint, maybe Exito to hold, something like that. So if you've had the engine failure before Exito, go and hold there, maybe after it. I'm not entirely sure that would be airline specific, and you'll need to tell air traffic control if you did have an engine failure, what you were going to end up going to do. Right, just quickly jump into the chat, see who else coming along. Captain Dutchy, thanks for coming along and joining us. And Mazin Hasuna is here again. Excellent. Good to see you. Aviation Alex, thanks for coming along. Pavel, hi. And there we go. Yeah, thanks it seems like the Streamlabs is now working. There's also slow mode on in the chat, unusually, but hopefully we'll make up for that because of there should be less latency today. That's the plan. Thank you for subscribing, Dyson W. That's very kind. I apologize for that animation. I don't know how to change that yet, so we're still working on it. Right, here we go. So 22017, Active Sky says, Mateo says, interesting. Okay, so it could be, that should mean we'd take off on 28, which is exactly what Simbrief thought, so that would make sense. Copy looks very dark, says Dougal. Is it my PC? It probably is a bit. Let's get that dome light on. No, that's not really helping, is it? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why we're getting that effect. The sun is slowly going down, so it could be as we transition through. But there we go. So there is the secondary flight plan. So DIF SR radnavs, well, what have we got based on? It's 185 knots down to Izito, which is based on the VOR. So I could tune in the SES 1086. So let's do that. Or let's just type it in. If you had an engine or emergency turn procedure in case of an engine failure, that would be quite a good time to tune in some sort of nav aid. So we have the VOR displayed there. All right, finally, time for a NIP-B. And now this is something I would normally have done earlier, but sadly today, running a little bit behind due to some technical difficulties, self-constructed. And we can go to our page 1. Let's bring this down here. Okay, we've got a zero fuel weight of 73.8. So let's just get ourselves to there. Quite a heavy flight, 73. Wow, 207 passengers. Oh no, sorry, that's our maximum. What am I talking about? 68.3. That sounds better. I was going to say that'd be very heavy. 68.3. Lots of cargo. Apply that. Fuel required to go to Barcelona on that route, and it's a pretty reasonable route, 7.4. And they've got 15 minutes contingency. So there's no event on today. I don't see why we wouldn't go with 7.4 for this one, and we'll see if I regret that later. But hopefully with 15 minutes, that should be fine. It shouldn't have any reason for that to be too busy. Right, here we go. So 0 fuel weight, 68.3 with a max zero fuel 25.7. I can go in there, block fuel, and I'm just going to close that. Really important that we check we have actually got it. There we go, 7.4. That goes in there. Here's our performance figures. So that's a NIP-B, looking reasonable. We've got extra fuel, including our alternate. Finally, we'll load in that performance. Flap 1, as usual, from runway 28 at Genoa. We're going to go with no shift, flaps to 1, flex temp of 39, and speeds 153. So we have a split here because it's quite a short runway. 153, 160. As we found out how short it was last time when we tried to land flap 3 low auto brake and had to take over just to make it fit. And 162, 225 clean. Flex of 39 is in. There we go. Excellent. So those IRSs have aligned. So let's go and see what else we can do. Let's get that APU up and running because it's probably getting quite hot in the cabin by now. If we have a look, 29, yeah. Yeah, I do apologize. It is looking pretty dark in here. Let's get some of these screens brighter. That might help the situation. Give an illusion of brightness anyway. There we go. We haven't got any cleared clearance on that SID, as I could see, so we're going to go straight up to 3.3. Right, just a quick look through the chats. Avioman, good to see you, Avioman. Thanks for coming along. Avioman, also a regular streamer and a big supporter of Simwings, along with Dougal, which the link is in my description. So excellent. Oh, it seems like everyone's streaming in the 321 today. There you go. So there'll be a few more flights if any of you don't get enough Airbus from this one. And a few regulars, excellent. Ian Morris, if an RNAV SID, what would you tune to RadNav to, or would you leave it auto-tune? I'd absolutely leave it to auto-tune for an RNAV SID. There's pretty much, if you lose those radio aids anyway, it doesn't really matter because you're going to use the the RNAV. And if you lose your GPS, you can no longer fly the RNAV, so you'd need to talk to air traffic control and get headings anyway, so that there's not too much point. But some people like to back it up anyway, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course. Something to note, speed limits on as we go, maximum 185 knots in that turn. We can see it there. If I go to my performance page, that's well below our clean speed. So we'll be keeping our flap 1 out until we get around the turn. It looks like it keeps it coded, yeah, until the intercept. So that should work out nicely. Lagging above flight level 90, obviously before we head out over the hills, we should reach it at flight level 226, so no problem there. Okay, let's put up constraint and let's check we have our weather set right. So QNH is 1013. Got 330, which is our cruising level in there. I don't see any problem with that really. We are on VATSIM. Is anybody else around here today? Just another Alitalia over there in a more traditional livery. Big fan of this livery. It's by Homer J, who's done a few of these retro ones I've used, so really nice. I like the printing on the wings. I always like this line down the windows, and I especially like the white top of the fuselage with the grey underneath. Quite classic. But apparently this plane has been retired already, so that's a bit of a shame. Okay, right. We should really get going on the hour. I usually leave about half an hour for these things. So get rid of the condition page, get the APU starting. Seatbelt signs can go on now because the passengers should all be sat down. We've got the fuel on, so that's fine. We'll put that switch to on, ready for later. We'll leave it set to 2000. I'm going to put that to auto and that's auto, but we'll leave predictive wind shear and the weather radar off for now. Right, so that is all the way through to our performance. So our MCDU should be set up. Do say if you think there's anything missing from here. Hi, Georges. Thanks for joining us. So, Matteo Chui, that's me on the other stand. Excellent, Matteo. Do have the retro livery, but VATSIM doesn't show it. That's a shame. Yeah, my CSL pack, as it were, probably doesn't include that. Good morning, Captain Geo. Thanks for joining us. Right, let's move through this. So, why is this not working? Matteo did say, do I have to open checklist? There we go. Thank you, Matteo. Great spot. Okay, so we've done that. And here we see I've got Copilot on. So this should take you through. If you're not sure what to do, once it's set to above, that's fine. Yeah, it should take you through all the bits that will just get you through to set up. So it's really good for that. It's done by the people who did one for the Zebo mod, and then Matteo's kindly fiddled with it a little bit. Okay, we adjusted the brightness. We've checked that. We're not going to go through the FNS programming. We've done that and that and that. And we've done the performance. I've had a question. I think Aviaman was talking about this. The trimmable horizontal stabilizer, this number here, it's very rare to enter it. I'm not sure of any airlines that do. You can enter it. It's just a little reminder, but it is not required. It won't do anything if you haven't. What we want to do really is make sure we have the correct CG for takeoff entered on here. And it's quite easy. We just take our percentage, run the wheel to match that CG percentage there. Okay, right. So that's that done. I think we'll just check there's no air traffic control to talk to. No, it's just ADR. So 1228 for Unicom will be the order of the day. This is unusual. So these radio panels would normally be on, to be honest with you. I've never turned one off when I've turned off an airplane. Maybe some airlines do, but there you go. So that should be there. Oh gosh, let's check what else could be missing then. That one should really be on as well. Then you have 1215 on box 2. Not that that works very well on here. Let's try it though. Let's have 1215, just keep things proper. So that can go there, because that's a select on VHF 2. Now I go back to VHF 1, and there's 1228. And I can also listen to VHF 2. I don't know. Does anybody use 215 in VATSIM? That'd be interesting to know. Hi, Captain Florida. Thanks for coming along. If I didn't say so already. Thomas Cook used to, says Lizzo5. So maybe they were one of the airlines that did use that horizontal stabilizer. Gave you an extra check at the takeoff config button check during taxi. There you go. So it can have a purpose if you do bother to enter it. Okay, so there's a flight plan. Copy preparation is done. And the checklist is also available in the Discord if you guys are interested. But what we're going to do today is let's just let everybody know what we're doing. JetBridge is attached. It's not actually a ground service, so I think we're just a bit stuck like that. The fueler's patiently waiting. They usually bang on the window to give you a fuel receipt or something. But we're going to push back and we're going to face to the east to taxi out for a departure from 28. So let's do that. Genoa ground, Alitalia 215, pushing back to face east from stand 405. Okay, better push back. Pre-plan. And I've got, this is the Aerosoft's, I believe it's the Aerosoft Geneva. I got it off Steam on sale and I really, really like it. Get these great numbers on the ground. So that looks good to me.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready. Ground to cockpit.
And now they're coming.
ToLiss driving up.
Okay, so we're going to do a manual engine start. So what's different about that? Just before that, Dougal says, do they really bang on the window? Yeah, it varies. Some airports will just put the fuel receipt into a stick and then they tap it, often on the FO window or depending which side they refueled on. And then you can open that window, grab it, much easier than having to go up and down the stairs. Often you've got passengers boarding, so it's a really efficient thing to do. Usually they need a signature of some kind, so a lot of airports will make you go all the way down and go and sign it, or the fueler has to come up and see you, which probably adds to their time during the day. Okay, so we've done the cockpit prep. Let's see through here. Constraints. Yeah, constraints should be active. We can put it on both sides. Let's get the AP bleed going. Sorry, yeah, of course. Sorry, passengers. We can get rid of that ground power.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to
Doors
connect.
are closed. That's fine. External power is off. Excellent. And we've called the tow truck. Done our briefing. And we've told ATC. SID, initial altitude, transponder. Yeah, here we go. So transponder needs to go to transponder. We'll have the thrust levers checked. They're definitely idle. Going to be very important for this. And we're going to put that beacon on. And the beacon is super important. It's for the ground crew. Oh, look at that. Oh, I must have some sort of active ground working then. And yeah, the beacon will make sure that everyone steps away from the airplane. There's one underneath as well. If it's inoperative for any reason, it's very quite a serious thing. You have to set up other procedures.
Release parking brake.
Okay. Off we go. About 3 minutes early. Look at that. Brakes released. Start the clock.
Starting pushback.
And let's
you
see.
may start engines.
I would definitely have terrain on this display for this departure because that's the big problem for today. Right, I'm hoping to keep the frame rate something reasonable. And we're going to ignore the engine start procedure because we're going to do number 2 manually and number 1 normally. So I'm not going to do it until we push back, just so we don't get distracted from it. Captain Jerry is a fueler. Oh, excellent. There you go. So they'll fill me in on what I do wrong, and I don't know how frustrating it is for them to have to come and see us. I'm sure it's better when we can go down. I do try and go down to sign the fuel sheet, or even better, if you're doing your walk around, you can sign it while you're out there. That saves somebody the trip. That's the usual way. Mateo says the jetways are that horrible red in reality, unfortunately. Dave Hagan, hello. Thanks for joining us. 24 degrees. That's lovely. Yeah, much nicer than it is here in the UK. Okay, so this manual start engine procedure, I'm not going to go through too much detail on it. It's just something slightly different. The question I got in Discord was, what is the point of this switch having a crank option and an ignition start? And it just made me think about starting the engines. Well, if you turn it to crank, that's rarely used, but effectively, if you turn it to crank and use the man start push button, you can just motor the engine. We start the engines by pumping compressed air, in this case from the APU, so the APU bleed air. It pumps it into an accessory drive, into a little starter valve that then spins the engine. It spins the N2. And as that spins, it slowly starts to speed up some other fans. Once you've got a bit of air going through the engine, you can then start sending fuel and igniting the fuel, and then it will accelerate into a start. That's typically what we do. In this case today, what we'll do is we'll do that manually. Normally, I just have to put that to ignition start and turn on the master. It's really easy, much easier than most airliners. I think the 737 is quite a bit more complicated, especially. But I'm not too familiar with the 737, of course. I'm sure many of you are. But what we're going to do today, instead of that, is we will do it manually. So the FADEC controls it if I use the normal method. And it monitors everything here. It does all the timing. And it's really, really very good.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Okay, brakes are set to park.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Disconnecting. Excellent. Right. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's do it manually. So we've got to remember a few things here. We're going to have to turn the system off if it doesn't work. And I must admit, I haven't tried this in the ToLiss, so I'm curious to see. So the FADEC isn't going to monitor it now. We have to be responsible for these numbers. So we have to do a few bits of timing. First of all, let's check those thrust levers definitely at idle. We can get they can disconnect. We can get the mode select to ignition start, just like normal, to get it ready. That sends the air to the right place. So now the air's at the starter motor and the valve is crossed. We're going to do this for engine 2. It also powers the FADEC. So that means that we get these numbers here. Otherwise, you have those amber crosses. So the FADEC's powered, which shows it's working nicely. Now what we're going to do...
disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
There we go. We'll just get the wave off. It might take a minute. We're going to start the use a manual start push button, check it all accelerates as we want to, and then a bit like a 737, we're just going to turn on the master switch and then monitor as it goes. We need N2 to reach 16%. That's the main objective here while we're going. And there is a way to shed other electrical items if it's not, or other bleed items if it's not getting enough power. There's the wave once we can see it. Excellent. So let's give it a go. Let's see if I can get this right while I'm clicking all over the flight deck. So we're starting engine 2, master number 2. Put that on. I'm going to time. Get that screen out of the way. And we want to see N2 reach 16%. I'm hoping it will. We can see that the valve has opened and it's pumping in air. It shouldn't really be igniting already, I don't think, because we've got the engine switched off. Okay, so it's reached 17% at least. I can see there it's at 22%, so we don't need to do any shedding. Once we've done that and waited 30 seconds, which we have nearly, and I can see that the temperature in the engine is nice and cool. There's our 30 seconds. So we don't need to do anything else. Engine master can just go on. On it goes. And now the engine can light up, add fuel, so we get ignition on there. Very important. If we didn't see ignition, we'd shut it down, and we'd have to be responsible for that. You do have to time so that there's only a little period of time for it to actually ignite. And there we go, available. So once N2's reached 43, well, it's already through that at 61, and everything else looks normal. We can just simply turn off the man start button, close that, and then we're going to put the engine mode select back to normal. And that's it. That is a manual engine start. So that's just a way of making it a little bit more complicated, a little bit more manual, like I say, like the 737. Other aircraft use that sort of system as well. I imagine the MD-80 is a far more complicated system than even that. Okay, let's start engine number 1. Got pressure, master switch goes to on, and here it comes. So why might we use a manual engine start? Well, it could be an MEL item, so there could be a problem maybe with one of the igniters. By manually starting, it should force, I believe it should force both igniters to work, which would stop it. Because if you have one igniter system not working, as I said before, the system will alternate which side it uses. So if you try to use the broken side, it will take a while, it will sit there and hang around. Dimitri, thank you very much for subscribing. So I hope you enjoy these. I know you've been viewed a few, so thank you very much. So if you have a strong tailwind, you'd consider a manual start as well. So if the engine is spinning the wrong way, and that's something we have to consider, ideally you want to start a jet engine pointing into the wind. But if you have a strong tailwind, you may choose to do a manual engine start if you can't get yourself facing the right way. The reason is I think it gives you a little bit more control over the situation, whereas FADEC may be a little bit more jumpy about what it does. Okay, that's available. Let's crack on then. So back to normal. AP bleed off. Don't need that. And the rest is fine. Come down here. Don't forget the flaps today, please. That's set to transponder. And let's bring up our checklist again. So we are now on the after start procedure. I see. And as you guys can see, it nicely scrolls through trim wheel position. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Now I'm cheating here. Really, you'd have calculated your CG for takeoff and probably written it down somewhere. I can see here my gross weight CG is 26.7. So that's my current CG effectively. It's not going to change much by the 200 kilos of fuel I burn on the way out. But there we go, 26.7. Oh, wrong way. So, as ever, pretty near the middle. It's quite uncommon to have to move it a lot, but when you do, you do notice it, and everyone has a double check and a think, is that definitely right? Mishari Air, thank you very much for subscribing. Very kind of you. Hope you enjoy the stream. Okay, so we've done that. Done the rudder trim to 0, pushback crew. There we go. Now it runs through a few other things. But today I'm going to taxi and do the flight control checks because I am hoping I've been clever and I have actually finally fitted the disconnect push button on here. So we should be able to do the rudder as we taxi. So you can all laugh when that doesn't work. And here we go. We've still got Matteo's pushback over there. He's probably waiting. Genoa ground, Alitalia 216 taxiing to holding point runway 28. How are we going to do that? Oh, we're going to have to go and backtrack. That's very embarrassing. I should have highlighted that earlier. That would be something, a good reason to do everything before you got out there. Yeah, we're going to go via Gulf and backtrack. I'm not even sure if that's a no entry. We'll find out. I do apologise if I'm doing this wrong. Okay, it's clear all around. Brakes released. Lights should go on. And let's do a little check of this. So we've got climb nav 152. That does look dim to me. There we go. Let's brighten these up. That's better. I thought I had them all the way. Obviously not. Climb nav, flight directors. We've got our cruise level in there. We know that's safe. Right. Let's do a flight control check. And I'm hoping I've got this right. So full left, full right, neutral, full down, full up, neutral, and rudder. So if I've done this right, I can press disconnect. Nope, that's not worked. That's not worked. That is a very upsetting turn of events. I was so excited about that. Okay, more work required. Sorry, everyone. There is a way to do it in the ToLiss, but obviously I've not quite figured it out. So slow ourselves right down, and we'll go full left, full right, neutral. So we've done that. It's done the flight control checks. And now we can go through our next little bit. So radar can go to on, predict your wind shear to auto, and let's put the transponder to TARA, auto brake to max, takeoff config, let's ding the cabin. And there's Matteo following us. Done the takeoff config, and there's the next little bit for entering the runway. Excellent. Right, I've missed a few little things here in the chat, so I do apologise. I'll try and catch up as we take off. I hope the chat's working for you today. Like I say, we have a slight delay on it just because we had a few bits of trouble last time. Hopefully we've got that sorted for today, and in future we won't need to have the delay on. Genoa traffic, Italia 216 is going to enter runway 28 to backtrack and line up. Okay, max span 24 meters, so we can't fit down that taxiway, as we can see. It looks pretty narrow. Getting a few spikes on the frame rate here, not entirely sure. Hopefully that smooths out. I have got the plugin that you guys suggested last time. Thank you very much for that. So it should, fingers crossed, balance, keep us going. Right, let's have a nice look outside. Beautiful livery. It's clear all around. Still got that glitch with the scenery. And here we go, runway ahead. No, looks like we can do this then. So before we enter, we'd both check very carefully. Put on all the lights. I want to be as visible as possible now. And we're going to have to make that little loop round to the right and then the left. No problem there. Excellent.
Approaching 28.
There's the RAS system. I'll talk about that a bit more. Let's get ourselves backtracking and have a quick look into the chats. I like the ground textures here, pretty good. Nice and quiet on TCAS.
10400 meters.
It thinks I'm landing this way, yeah. That's the problem with RAS. It doesn't always know what's going on. Fly24 said, have you ever had an abort a start? Yes, I have, for a slightly different reason. It was an electrical thing that happened. So yeah, it does occasionally happen. But in general, the FADEC should abort the start for you. So when you're doing an automatic start, you would typically not touch it, because if you have fuel left over in the engine and you've turned off the master switch, you remove the FADEC's ability to do that. Whereas if you leave it on, the FADEC can sense that there's unburnt fuel or whatever, and it will pump the engine. And that's what that crank switch is for. That would be to do it manually if you had a tailpipe fire. So I think you could definitely get a video out of some start faults. There's quite a lot to go there. Flaps 40, why is the terrain on ND half yellow and red numbers? Great question. So these numbers just tell me where the terrain is on the display. So the highest piece of terrain is 3.2. The lowest is at my level, sea level effectively. So it's not very accurate. We use our charts and our MSAs to know what's actually safe. So we've got a better clue on our SID plate here that the MSA is really quite high, 6,400 to the north in that sector, 8,300 in that sector. But this ND is telling me that the lowest displayed is 0 and the highest is 3.3. So that's what those numbers are for. They give you a little bit of SA just in case you've completely lost everything else, I suppose. And that's just based on a database. It's not a radar. This is just a database. I know it updates like a radar. That's just so that it doesn't confuse you, I suppose. Right, let's follow the line. We've done ATC, done the nose lights, done the runway lights, parking brake is released. Ooh, 9 knots might be a bit fast to do that. I think you'd be feeling that in the cabin. Let's try and use. Sorry, I must try and use the joystick to look around. It's probably a much smoother experience for you guys than using the mouse like that. Okay, we've done the while taxiing, and here we go. Right, I'm just going to close that. Okay, right, we'll get into the air and then we'll have a quick look through if there's any more questions. Alitalia 216 taking off runway 28 for a lug and departure to the west. Okay, let's check we got everything done. Excellent. Right, we will. Parking brakes released. Just going to hold it on the brakes. Start the timer. Half side stick forwards. And off we go. 50% N1. Release the brakes. Now 2 clicks forwards. Man, flex 39, SOS runway. The order thrust is armed.
28.
Everything's looking good. We're accelerating. That RAS is quite active. Let's see how the wind does. Looks like we've got a bit of a tailwind. So 80 to 100, releasing the side sticks to neutral. Oh, let's hope this works. It looks like more of a tailwind than I was hoping for. So there's V1. Rotate. 3 degrees a second. A bit fast there. Positive climb. Gear up. You call positive climb pretty much. You see the VSI rising and you can see the rad out starting to go up. So that's it really. That's the criteria met. Then there's nav mode. And away we go. All looking quite nice so far. Hopefully we get nice views. A little bit hazy. This V2, I think, I rarely see it that much above VLS. You typically expect it to be somewhere a little bit closer there. I know ToLiss insists it works, and I can see why legally it does. It just seems a little bit unusual for me. Okay, lowering the nose, starting that turn. I'm just going to put in the autopilot so that I can show you this. And we're being thrust back to thrust climb. Auto thrust is engaged. Now we need to be 185 knots in the turn. It's accelerating before I want to, so I'm going to just select it. So you taking control in the Airbus, you just pull it towards you, and there we go. 185 knots now, and it will keep that radius in. I think that in real life would be coded 250 knots to at least that point, and quite possibly even the next point to make sure this doesn't happen. Maybe Exito would have a 250 knot limit, and in that case you could simply accelerate when you deemed it appropriate after the turn, obviously, because you certainly don't want to accelerate in that turn. Run Pilot Aviation, thanks for coming along today. They're saying 1 engine taxi out. Yeah, it's something you'd definitely consider in a taxiway that short, especially with a backtrack. You probably wouldn't. The reason is you don't want to be starting an engine, obviously, whilst you're taxiing down the runway. That's not ideal. So if there's not the time, you could do it like that. But we must do another single engine taxi. I must do another one soon. Okay, so now we're pointing away. I'm happy to accelerate. We're around the turn. Let's get these screens somewhere useful for us. And you can see these numbers have changed. So there's currently 4-5 displayed somewhere. So I can accelerate. Push the speed, manage speed. There it goes up to 250 knots. Ah, here we go, getting into some clearer air. We can accelerate away. Thrust is at climb, but I leave the timer running until the packs and flaps are in and so on, just to remind me I haven't done everything yet. Otherwise you could sit here and start looking out the window or doing your flight plan, and that'd be a very, very bad idea. We can set standard though, because we're going straight up to 330, so there we go. I am Dimitri talking about the RAS system. Yeah, I don't know what part that played in Harrison Ford's incident. Right, flaps to 0 above the S-speed, and there we go. Climbing away. The RAS in here is a little bit sensitive. I've not flown with the RAS quite as active as the one that's included in this mod, but RAS is a very personal thing to the airlines. They'll all choose what they want it for. I'll talk about it a little bit en route if we get the time. So next event, we're going to Exito, then we're going to turn around at 4,500 feet. We'll easily be above that, as we already are, so that's fine, and we can carry on like that. Standard is set. So next procedure comes at 10,000 feet. Flaps are at 0, so they can go off. That can go down. Excellent. Dimitri, would you use crank in flight in cases where the packs get hot then? No. No, the crank is only used really, someone may be able to correct me on that. I've never had to use it in anger, as it were, in actual use, but it's really for a tailpipe fire on startup where you need to pump air through the engine. So it wouldn't be used. The packs would be a separate issue in that one. Dave Hagen has the jar design 320 and have issues with pressurization. I have the packs on and it's set to auto. Sometimes I wish Aerosoft 320 was also available for X-Plane. I had the Aerosoft 320 and it was good. I found some of the EPR and N1 numbers a little bit unrealistic, whereas I think this one does a better job. The thrust levers and the position for the FADEC and so on seemed a little bit more in line with what I would expect. But it was otherwise, yeah, it was very good. But the ToLiss is a good product. I'm very happy with it. Okay, 10,000 feet. Lowering the nose to accelerate. Let's get rid of those noisy landing lights to retract. And what I might do, because that turn is really quite wide, we're facing the wrong direction. I'm more worried about terrain, so let's keep it at 250 knots. Because I don't see the point in accelerating. And then that way, this line will be a bit closer to these waypoints. I'm surprised, actually. Have I missed another speed limit? Doesn't appear to be, which is quite interesting. But yeah, no, that's definitely going to be a good choice for us. We're having an issue with the banner, so bear with me, guys. I will get that up and running for you, I'm hoping. I do apologise. We've made so much progress, haven't we, in some of our previous streams, and we've slightly run into a more amateurish show today for you, so I do apologise. We can get this going, though. Italia 216. Right, let's see if that feeds you guys in some numbers. There we go. Excellent. Let's get sails around the turn and then we'll accelerate more. Let's get rid of the chrono. We don't need that anymore. Seatbelts can go off. I know we're turning, but the reality is the airplane won't feel that. You'll be in about 1G because we're turning around the bend, so you could not too worried about having a bank angle on, as long as we don't also put in some left rudder. That should be fine. Thanks for the update, Aviation Alex. Yep, sorry about that. I spent all that effort getting you a nice one ready. Oh, I thought I did, but yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Is that a bit more suitable? Hopefully it is. I could see why the other one was a little bit too obtrusive on the screen. Yeah, less operational. JJ says, any news on when you will start operating again? Well, I'm just speaking for myself, but at the moment, there are still flights going. Most airlines still, or a lot of airlines are doing just a few flights, but it's going to be a case in the UK of when can airlines operate their majority of their schedule. And whilst we have this quarantine in place, it seems like that's quite restrictive. So we're waiting to hear really when that gets lifted, and then the airlines, I hope, will be able to get themselves back in the loop of flying. Calamity, thank you for coming along. And they've said, how long did it take you to become a pilot? Well, a typical, if you do the course full time, something about 18 months to 2 years. You could also do the course whilst you're doing another job and building up the hours other ways and in your spare time. It'll take longer that way, but it may also not be as expensive, and it certainly means you could help pay for it with another job. So the quickest way would be a full-time course, but obviously that can be a little bit pricey, puts you into a lot of debt as you finish. So it has its disadvantages, as you'd imagine. Richard V, glad. Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty unobtrusive when it doesn't even show you anything. Let's have a quick look through this. So airport button, yeah, absolutely. Let's see what it's around. I've already made the 9-0 restriction, so I've got no problem selecting that already. And let's do that. Oh, it does look like it's struggling. What's our frame rate? Sitting at 20. That could be a little bit of an issue. Let's see if we can improve things. I do have this plugin that you guys kindly recommended, so thank you for that. Right, alternate flight plan. Radnavs we can clear. We no longer need that. So this is a great checklist. Let's give you some good tips. Secondary, I'm just going to copy. They call it the alternate here, but it's usually referred to as secondary, I suppose. But there we go. Don't need any tuned. Optimum flight level and fuel check. Optimum flight level today is 353. We're only going to 33. Quite a short flight, so that's absolutely great. Let's accelerate then. Manage speeds. And off we go. Heading towards Lagen. Let's see if we get some nice views outside of our lovely Alitalia aircraft. Soaring away into the evening skies. Looks like a bit of wind drifting us across there. What have we got? Yeah, 40 knots straight across. Should have helped us with that turn, really. I'm surprised we went so wide. And here we go. Simon Taylor, hi Captain, great to catch you live. How did you get the terrain to look so good on the display? If you're talking about the navigation display, I've literally just turned it up. So using this little dial here, there's two. So there's the outer one, which shows you the, I'll show you that. This is just the brightness of the whole display. And then the back one does the brightness of the background of the terrain. So I've turned them both up to maximum, and then you get that clear picture. If you end up just brightening the navigation display, you can accidentally have it turned off. It's quite frustrating in the real aircraft. If you take over an airplane, it's easy to miss that and think that you've got the terrain shown when you actually haven't. So it's important to check it really and set it to something where you can see it. And it's the same for the weather radar, which would be in the background, so you have to adjust it from there. So not so much an issue for terrain because we're not navigating via this display for terrain. But if we were navigating around weather, it'd be really important that we have this weather displayed on this screen properly. So that would be quite a dangerous situation. So worth taking care to check you've got both of those switched on. Yeah, good question. Thanks. And I would put the blue progress bar in a lower white part. Yeah, that's a good point. That's something I'll definitely consider for the future. I think that white bar is like a separator, but I can see why it would work nicely to have that progress in the bottom. Ian Morris says the dry crank probably used for a wet start when the NG does not ignite and you need to clear the excessive fuel. Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty much used the same because you don't want to have all that fuel sitting in the engine unlit. Pookie Malice says, how many hours did you need in Europe before you can apply for a job in the airlines? Well, the airlines can take you in Europe with the minimum, so it's down in the sort of mid 200s, low 200 hours. It's a different system to America, where I believe you need 1500. So yeah, quite a different setup. So you can really do your flight training. If you get your license, then you can start applying and you can go and become a first officer as long as you've got all the right qualifications, the commercial license and the all the theory tests done. And then you can sit in the right-hand seat. Obviously, for your command, you have to do another skills test, but you'll build up the hours for that during your time in the airline, and then you'll get your full ATPL. Martin Scott, hello, thank you for joining us. Matteo Chewy, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping on top of the checklist. You've been very kind, working on it very hard so far. Simon Taylor, thank you for joining us, and yeah, glad it's proving useful. So here we go then, we've headed over Lagen. I think we can clear out these charts and start thinking about our arrival into Barcelona. So that can all go, and let's bring up LEBL. As you can see, I thought it'd be fun to go to one of our bigger airports because it's been a little bit of a while. How long are we going to get in the top of climb? So we're expecting to level off somewhere before Cologne. So not too long, but we have a bit of a level segment. And I don't know if there's any air traffic control available. Zurich's got control, it seems, but nothing for us yet. We're getting bad frame rate. Hold on, let me try and improve that situation for us. There we go. So this, thank you for this wizard, guys. It's really useful. So if I leave it in auto, fingers crossed, the FPS stay high. Especially with these clouds, there's a lot of weather out there being rendered. But yeah, I quite like the scenery in X-Plane. I think it's quite nice. I've been trying to update a few things in it. Now we're up in the cruise. What I might do is swap over to weather radar. So set that to weather and turbulence. 0 degrees, yeah, that's probably reasonable. Set to calibrated. And all we'll have to do is turn off that. And in the real airplane, I would now see WXR and the tilt angle displayed, but it doesn't seem to work in the ToLiss yet. But there we go. And we'll just see if anything truly exciting appears. Let's put terrain onto our trusty FO sides, so we can just have a rough idea. But as I said, we can't navigate using this display. It's purely, I don't want to say decorative, but it's just to help build your essay. It's not a rate to fly through mountains or anything like that. Yeah, plenty of cloud in front of us. But beautiful, beautiful scenery for the coast just over there. Oh, excuse me, looking at an iPad. That's not very interesting. Let's try a little wing view. Yeah, great. As I said in my last video, love the typing on the wings. I think that's really nice. Ian Morris, is there a minimum time period set by the operator for the level part of the sector? Great question. No, there isn't. They will have their flight plans that work on all sorts of criteria and efficiencies. So you could level off for just a few minutes and then start your descent. It's perfectly normal. There's no restriction on the airplane to do that. That's absolutely fine. Sometimes we don't make it. It might be that we have a short flight and we decide as flight crew that we don't want to climb all the way up just to have to immediately come back down again. But the airplane wants to be high up at its optimum, really, because that's where it can get the best efficiency on the fuel and the engine. So staying low is something we definitely avoid doing. You don't want to sit. If you sit a few thousand feet low on your planned flight level over a long flight, you'll lose quite a bit of fuel just in that extra air, thicker air. You can actually see that on here. It's not going to be much difference today. If I scroll through, operational impacts, flight level change, down, flight level 1, so 1,000 feet lower on this trip, 25 kilos of fuel, so not much. Down 2 is another 70 kilos for 2,000 feet. So, you know, if you did that for a few hours, like a 4-hour flight, and it was 4,000 feet lower, it would be surprising the impact that has. So yeah, but no, we can level off and descend as we please, really. Sakis, thank you for joining us again today. Whether it's default X-plane, yes, it absolutely is. I have not managed to do anything fancier. My main concern is frame rates. So, you know, we're just about doing okay here, but I've had to close Streambot. So this could mean we miss any new subscriptions. So I do apologise if that happens, if anyone subscribes and expects to see their name, but or I don't mention it. But there we go. Yeah, we're having trouble with the frame rate. So I haven't changed it from anything other than default. And I must say that the default X-plane weather engine is quite impressive. I think it's pretty good. It does a great job, especially coming in and out of cloud layers. I do quite like that. Dimitri, the 3J FPS is nice, but it's becoming obsolete, especially as we move to Vulkan, where data refs are locked. Ah, that's interesting. I'll have to have a look at that. Thank you for that. Oh, excuse me. I've got the Thrustmaster HOTAS 4, which is quite easy to just move the thrust levers. They're not very fixed in place like the actual Airbus ones are, so accidentally knocking them into toga is quite easy to do. Let me just take a note of that. Fly Aggie tweak. Thanks for that. Because yeah, this is actually I use Vulkan for this, which helps me do this because with this many cloud before in OpenGL, I wouldn't have got this far. What authority over the operator do you have to exceed the set flight level, says Ian Morris. If you mean to exceed the planned flight level, well, you do what you think is safest. So if you need to, you need to. As I said before, in terms of maximum, I wouldn't go too close to this recommended maximum. So today, I wouldn't go up to 370. That's too close in the 321. In the 319, it's harder, and to get that close to the limit's usually higher. So I wouldn't be so worried about getting closer to it either. 321, I wouldn't bother. If it's just in case that I want to go to a higher flight level, then it would be captain's discretion, and they'll talk to air traffic control. Air traffic control may not let you because ultimately we filed a flight plan. So I filed a flight plan at 33,000 feet today. So there's no reason air traffic control should expect me to want to go higher. It becomes a bit of an issue in congested airspace. So in Central Europe, Maastricht, that sort of thing, it can be quite a problem if you start changing your flight level during the flight and they can't fit all the airplanes they expected to in. So we try and stick to it more and more these days, especially in the busier airspace. If you're in quieter airspace, then you'll do what you think is most suitable. So it'll be maybe trying to get to the optimum. It could be turbulence as well. So if we're sitting here at 330 and there's terrible turbulence, then you might say, well, let's go back down to 310. And it stays like that on a long flight where you'd want to make sure you had the fuel to cover that sort of change, just in case. Dougal says Vulcan's working well. Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad. Touch wood. It worked well for us last time. We'll keep our fingers crossed it does this time. I've got autosave going, everyone. So if we suddenly lose everything on the screens, don't panic. We'll get it back in a few minutes. Let me do the panicking while I try and work that out. Okay, last few hundred feet. Pretty good rate of climb here. They've definitely done better on this drag as we get higher up and into the faster speeds. Mac and out star, excellent. And that should very shortly go to out cruise. There we go, transponder to below. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a horrible feeling that I'm using a slightly outdated version of this procedure. So I do apologise, Matteo, if that's the case. But anyway, what we'll do now is have a quick check through the status pages. So I'll just press all. And I've just clicked it once there and it stays there, and then click it again. And we can look through. And as I've said before, this is just a quick check that nothing's starting to go awry or starting to go wrong. Reality is the airplane has advisories up here. So you'd have an advisory before an ECAM. The advisory appears, in that little box there. It would appear here and it'd say ADV. And that means something is starting to go wrong, but it's not quite an ECAM yet. Excellent. All looking good. So we'll get rid of that. Let's think about our fuel. We've burnt 2 tons. We started off with 5.4, so 6.4, so 7.4. If we add that 2 tons to 5.4, that's the right amount. So it looks like it's not pouring out of the wings or anything silly like that. So that's good. Matteo is saying that the only problem with default weather is an hour late. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me actually. Sometimes it seems to be a little bit out of sync. So thanks for that information. It could be that you have slight changes from what air traffic would expect you to do from the current weather. Matteo said, I did manage to land opposite to everyone else once in Newcom. Yes, okay. And my takeoff probably could have caused that earlier as well. Here, Morris, no problem at all. That's why I'm here. Thanks very much for coming along to watch. Let's just enjoy the view for a little bit. Yeah, really nice. Classic grey on the bottom. Italian flag proudly displayed over the tail. Excellent. Quite a nice detail on this one as well. There's this little, I don't know if anyone knows the history of this. There's this little sort of crossbow at the front, or bow and arrow. Really nice. Alitalia is a big fan of this little black section in front of the windows as well. I don't know what that's for. I've heard it might be to do with glare to stop the sun reflecting into the flight deck. But on the Airbus, I don't think it's a requirement. It's not on most Airbuses, but maybe it's on previous airliners it was a useful thing to have, depending on the shape. Fly24 says, do you get 1,000 to go chime? No. I don't believe you do. Now that's a great question. It's been a little while, so the ToLiss doesn't, certainly, and I don't think the airplane does. If the autopilot isn't in it, if it deviates from what you've selected, then you do by a few hundred feet. But when it's just a normal 1,000 feet to go, it's up to us to sort of keep an eye on it. Yeah, I know a lot of airplanes would give you a beep, but I think in the Airbus it's just when you don't have the autopilot, or if we deviated from what we selected now. And Dimitri says, there's an ongoing debate about whether or not the flare logic in the ToLiss planes is correct or true to real life. What's your take on it? I think it's pretty good. I've heard that ToLiss's manuals recommend slightly different settings to what I've got set. So I need to adjust that before I talk too much about it. What is the debate, do you mind me asking? If you could let me know what people's concern is with it. I find I have to flare in the 321 shortly after 50 feet really to get the flare started by 30 feet. But I think that's more of an issue with the approach speed being slightly too fast. So I think it's pretty good. My main concern is that my side stick that I use at home just doesn't feel like the Airbus side stick. It's not got enough resistance, so that certainly changes how it feels. Matteo answers our wing arrow question. Thanks very much for that. It's a symbol of speed. Yeah, absolutely. It looks great. It's part of the company heritage as a symbol of customer loyalty. Oh, there you go. So they still use it. Excellent. Thanks for that, Matteo. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, Lizzo 5 has the same thoughts about the autopilot bus. 700 feet to go. Yeah, excellent. Dougal says, which stick are you using? I currently have the Thrustmaster HOTAS 4, which is a PlayStation joystick as well. So it's not chosen for any reason. I had it before I got the ToLiss and X-Plane. It's just worked with PlayStation, so I used it with Ace Combat. But I don't know what the best one to be for the actual Airbus simulation would be. I would love to try some others, but obviously that's quite an expensive thing to start testing. But one with more resistance would certainly be nicer. I think it's a little bit light, this one. Okay, right. Let's have a look at our charts. And arrival, I'm expecting to come in via Bisba. And I've got the Bisba 1 Zulu. Where has that gone? Bisba 2 Yankee. 1 Whiskey. Wow, and this is what you get. Bisba 1 Zulu. In Amsterdam, which has more runways by far, double the runways of Barcelona, there's just one approach chart. It's really impressive. But in Barcelona there are a lot, and it can be quite a mission to scroll through them. Well, look at that. So you really got to make sure you know which one you're getting. Now with that, I'm expecting to have some sort of transition as well. Let's just check we know, is the wind easterly or westerly? It is westerly, so 25 right is most likely in this case. And let's see what happens. RNAV transitions, yep, to 25 right. So we're going to end up, let's see, at Calais. There it is. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Then here's the RNAV, dunk, dunk, and back out again, and then wait for radar vectors back in. That's what I would expect. Now, every stream I've done so far, I've said that and got it hugely wrong, and we've had to restart our programming. RNS Zulu, as I've said before, Zulu should be the one that they use most often, so unless there's another reason, that should be the one in use. And here it is, RNS Zulu 25 right, and then we get vectors in via Telba, and in we go. Fly24 says, I believe it is glare, or at least on the 747 they have matte paint in white. There you go, very interesting. So it could be to stop glare shining in, just bouncing into people's eyes or up around the flight deck. It could be unnecessary, especially for a long flight. Weather looks like it's improved slightly. Getting a bit of a view of the south coast. The route today does take us near Nice. I probably missed that now. FMQ, LFML. Yeah, I think we're over Marseille already. Right, let's check the tuning, or sorry, I should say the coding. So we'll go flight plan and arrival, and we need a via. So let's go ILS 25 right Zulu. I'm going to stick with my 1 Zulu, and that via was probably called the Calais 1 Whiskey. Calais 1 Whiskey, there it is. And back and insert. Once again, it draws that huge line out, which is the radar vector. But if we go to plan, I can now see, excuse me, Padco, Divku, Nildu, Bisba, all the way down to Calais, and then we zoom in. It takes us down around. And as you guys will know, whenever we have an approach that looks like this, we need to be very careful with our descent to make sure we are ready to be brought straight in, because we could go from Charlie Lima Echo straight to the ILS. In fact, with no other traffic, that's what I'm expecting to do. Barcelona is a busy airport, so in real life it could be either, but you want to be ready for that straight in. Oh, I just got a ding. So thank you very much to Fly X-Plane. That's a great username. And thank you for joining us. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Okay, that's done. Right, so we've done our flight plan. Oh, we're losing the frame rate again. That's because I have the window open. Hopefully that solves it. Excellent. Flight plan's done. Radnavs. Well, I'm not going to tune anything. I'm going to let it auto-tune. We're going to fly to this VOR and then outbound. This is RNAV, as you can see, Bravo Lima 439. So even if we wanted to revert to headings, to VOR, we can't, because there's no reference for these points. They're just RNAV points. Dougal says V1 is very happy with their joystick. So yeah, I'm curious what they use, what V1 uses. That'd be interesting because I think he's done a lot of research on it. Right. So let's see what else we need for the approach. We got the Bravo Charlie Alpha 245 1995. Yeah, this is tuned wrong, but it changes when we get closer. I'm not sure what this is. I haven't seen that before. Course 87 slope. Is that talking about the ILS? Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens as we get closer. There's always something new or different to surprise you in these things. Progress page. Classic LEBL 25. Right. There we go. Does anyone know? Are we expecting to have air traffic controlled as we get to Barcelona? I will keep an eye on it just in case. But still, no one wants to speak to us. No, Geneva. Nope. Looks like we're still on Unicom. Excellent. And that makes our life a bit easier. Maybe we can do a hybrid of the arrivals. There's our distance straight to the threshold. I did do a tutorial on my channel if anyone would like to see my latest video, which I did. So I do these streams and also I've been uploading some tutorials. It's about the ILS approach and some of the details of it. It's yeah, hopefully that can give you guys a bit of a clue as to what I'm doing. It's been an interesting video actually to upload because I've not done an ILS tutorial before. Most of my viewers, you guys know about that sort of stuff already. And I figured there were lots of tutorials on that topic, but I thought I'd give my take on it as well, as a few people had asked about it. And yeah, people seem pretty interested in it, which is great. Thank you guys for all your kind comments and suggestions. I know a few people, I think probably new viewers to the channel, have been a little bit found it a little bit overwhelming, too many details spoken too quickly. So I must try and correct that in future videos so that the stuff comes across a bit more clearly, and it maybe came across as a bit overwhelming for someone who's brand new to flying an ILS approach in the Airbus. So I may do a sort of a basics series where we just look at how we could get it happening and explain for us, just to make it a bit more accessible, and then people could perhaps move on to looking at the slightly more detailed bits that I've been talking about in some of these other tutorials, because I'm spoiled with you guys and your knowledge on it, so I'm a bit prone to just talking about things as I would with anybody who I think knows about the Airbus. But yeah, it's been really interesting, and I'm really grateful for anyone who's commented for any feedback on it, good or bad. It's always useful to know. I think V1 has the Warthog. Okay, interesting. Yeah, thank you, Dougal. Dimitri says, when flare mode logic initiates a pitch down, that the fly-by-wire is summing control inputs from the stick, thinking that the flare mode is another side stick. Interesting. Interesting. It would result in behavior where you need to pull back much further on the stick than normal. Well, yeah, I would say that the flare I've had to do is probably a little bit more, but I've gotten used to it now. So that could be an issue. I'll have a think of it today. So Dimitri's correctly saying that at 50 feet it takes a snapshot of the altitude. At 30 feet begins subtle nose down 2 degrees over 8 seconds. Not sure this happens. Yeah, I'll be curious to see. I do find it does put quite a bit of a rate down, and it needs a bit of a strong flare. The reason the Airbus has that, a bit technical details, guys, so apologies if this is boring to you, but the reason the Airbus has a flare law where instead of just landing in normal law where you're controlling the G, it actually freezes the trimmer and then starts putting a bit of a nose down pitch as you get into the flare. It's just to force the pilot to have to flare normally, so you actually have to start pulling back just to keep the nose where it is, and that way you end up feeling like you're flaring the aircraft, and it just makes it more responsive. So that just shows you how many things the Airbus has built into it going on in the background. You don't really think about that much when you fly it though. It's just something that happens, and it's designed just to make it a bit more natural. Right, let's not go sailing past our descent point. 190 miles if we did straight in. That's absolutely fine from 33,000 feet. We need about 110 probably. Would be no problem. So look through our arrival. Something to note on this transition is there's a lot of terrain around to the north. So what is the minimum altitude here? 220 knots, minimum flight level 70, and it seems to be 70 for quite a way. And then 5,000, 4,000, 4,000. So 70 out to Bravo Lima 443. So we'll try and maintain that unless we're visual and we're happy to descend more. Obviously, if we get straight to Tebler, then that'll make life easier and we can just descend down to our platform. Let's have a look at the ILS plates. Yeah, there's those high MSAs, 6,500 to the north. But if we look at the ILS itself, platform of 2,300 feet, so quite low. that means that 6.9 miles from the Bravo Charlie Alpha, which is the VOR, and it's also, oh sorry, no, it's the DME. Good, ILS DME is co-located, so that makes our life easier. That means at 6.9 miles, we're going to intersect the glide slope. It's a normal 3-degree glide slope, so we can be flap 2 at that point, and 160 knots. That'll be sort of what I would aim to be. And then as we come down the glide slope, we'll configure, I think we'll configure probably 5.5 miles unless we have a tailwind, and that should be absolutely fine. Let's load up the rest of the box. So radnavs, progress, performance. Here we go. What is the QNH in Barcelona? Just refresh that, although I appreciate my X-plane is probably not running quite the same, but there we go, 1005, a low QNH, so we need to be careful. The transition level could be raised as well. Temperature 23, a lovely evening in Barcelona, no doubt. Winds 22015. Yeah, a bit of a breeze, could feel a few tiny bumps off that, nothing too exciting. And there we go, VAP of 145 if we land flat full. Excellent. What I'll next do is go to our ILS plates and let's pull out the minima. ILS DAH refer to minimums. Down we go. Category C on our approach today. 225 above the runway. 235 minima. So not quite standard. It's slightly higher, slightly raised. 235. Config full. For the go around, in case you have to do one, and we have an engine failure, we go on runway heading to 5 miles from Bravo Charlie November. Turn left to intercept radial 242. Bravo Charlie November. Climb to 3,000 feet. Then as directed. 3,000 feet goes in there. So this would be one where I might consider having a backup for that go around. So if I was to put in the Bravo Charlie November, I could just tune that in here. There's the VOR 1167 and radial 242, sort of straight ahead. And I could just have that as a backup in case I need it. I mean, to be honest, it's a pretty easy go around, effectively straight ahead to 5 miles, then get yourself onto that radial. But now if I go to flight plan, airports, and plan mode, we should see that we have that radial sort of drawn in and extending out, and there's the intercept. So just a backup for us, could come in handy. Fuel prediction, 900 kilos extra. So we planned, let's see what we plan to have. To have an extra 15 minutes, 770. And we've made up another couple of hundred. That's pretty reasonable. You usually make up a little bit of fuel if nothing else goes awry or delays you. So there we go, 1 ton. Good, so we're in a good place for our approach. Right, something not to forget, as I completely forgot last time. Let's see if we can fit in a ground chart. Really important in somewhere like Barcelona. Airports. Let's go through all the briefing pages. Airports, there we go. And I'm not sure what that means. I'm not entirely familiar with Jefferson charts, but we're going to plan to vacate. I'm just going to take a high speed to the left, maybe Romeo 5, I think that is, or maybe Romeo 6. We'll see. With a bit of a headwind, probably not too hard to meet 5. And we'll do that using low water brake. And we'll go to flap full and idle reverse. There's no reason to do anything other than that today. And then I think what we'll do is, let's see, where would Alitalia park? I don't know if anyone knows where Alitalia normally park. Maybe they park up here. I think this is the low-cost terminal though, so I'm suspecting Alitalia is down here somewhere. So, we'll see. We'll see where we fancy going when we get on the ground, whichever looks suitable and not covered by another aeroplane. Sakis Ars says the VOR tutorial helped them a lot. That's really kind. Thank you. I'm glad it did. VORs was quite a big topic, and it's quite a long video, so thank you for sticking through it. But yeah, I think a satisfying VOR approach is always a nice thing to get right. Run Pilot Aviation, raw data today. Appreciate your tutorial about it. Great work. Yeah, that could be a good idea, actually. I hadn't planned it, so you can watch me embarrass myself. But yeah, I think we can do a raw data ILS. No reason why not. If it gets busy or there's another... if we're too busy talking to air traffic control, I won't, because I've had a bad time trying to do raw data and air traffic control all at once. But if we can, we'll get that done. Dougal's asking, do I hate Barcelona? Many do. Well, as I've mentioned, Barcelona is hugely complicated. So this can lead to, you know, runway changes. There's terrain to the north. There's a lot of ground areas, a lot of different arrivals. You can end up flying a long way downwind. So I certainly sympathise with people finding it to be slightly more complex than some other airports, especially on a busy day. So I can sympathise with that, but no, I actually, and genuinely, I don't hate flying to Barcelona. I think it's a nice airport. It's got long runways, nice facilities. Relatively these days, these new arrivals are really quite nice, so they take you out and you've got a bit of space. The other thing that can make Barcelona tricky, aside from the terrain, is the fact that we get thunderstorms around, as you would imagine in the hot weather in the summer. So if you add in thunderstorms to a complicated airport like this and a lot of traffic, thunderstorms are no problem on their own as long as there's not much traffic. If there's a lot of traffic and everybody's trying to avoid thunderstorms, that can make it very time consuming to get in. So if you're all trying to divert around the thunderstorm and then you're all trying to change which runway you want because the thunderstorm's too near to your approach. So that the weather makes a big difference here, certainly, as you'd expect. Okay, we've done the runway star, we've done the temporary bearing distance we've set, and this just says manage speed and off we go, but I'll do that slightly later. Let's see what managed speed. Actually, I think it's asking us to check the managed speed in the descent. 340. Now that's too fast. I don't know why the ToLiss code's so fast. Let's do 300. And what that should do is actually move that descent point slightly closer, because if we descend at a slower speed, we'll have to descend a bit earlier. We're doing 140 miles, so I want to descend probably in the next 20 miles. So that's a not unreasonable descent point for now. We've tuned that. We can't check the course yet because we need to. We've got our auto brake, done the engine out to the missed approach height. We looked at the time of the fuel, planned our arrival, and now here it just says MCP. Now MCP's a Boeing term. It's actually the FCU. Sorry, Matteo, I didn't realise it said that. This is the flight control unit. It's talking about this little section here, and it says altitude bug adjust till your initial approach fixed clearance. Altitude button push, and down you go. And that would be fine if you weren't using air traffic control. But if you are, obviously, you'd need to make sure you get your clearance first. So we'll say we've done that. Okay, great. Alitalia uses T1 at Barcelona Airport. Thank you, Tango Delta. Let's have a look. Where's that going to be? That's T2. What terminal is this in the middle? T1. Ah, so maybe the south side. Why don't we go and park on the south side then? One of these gates here. I think that could be pretty reasonable. So what we're going to need as well is taxi routes, arrival. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Hopefully it's quiet enough. Parking stands. There we go. So I think we'll get ourselves off the runway. So if we can do Romeo 5, head south, get ourselves around here. One of these looks suitable. That should be quite nice for us. Run pilot aviation, absolutely no problem at all. That's what I'm here for. Matteo, thank you for changing it. Yeah, very good. As I said, guys, the Discord has a little section on plugins and references used. I've pinned some things, which is currently the checklist and this procedure that I'm using, which are really great if you're just starting out on the Airbus. Richard V, actually, I meant to ask you if you wouldn't mind putting your little field of view calculator, which is a great little tool. If you could put that in there, I've used that in a, or that came up in a previous video, and it's great. It gives you a better view of the flight deck. For landing, you're better off with a normal field of view like this. So this is the default 60 degrees, because our references are going to be mainly outside the window. But by having a better field of view, you can actually see some of these switches and other screens, and you don't have to keep scrolling around like I am here. And it's a bit more representative of what the pilots can see sitting in their seat. So yeah, a great little tool for that. Pavel, about terminals and parking, maybe you could tell us somehow about London airports and parking of main airlines at what terminals, just in general for VATSIM. Yeah, that's a good question. I've got limited experience. The terminals do swap around, so anyone who knows, feel free to jump into the chat and say. Obviously, in Heathrow, we've got British Airways on Terminal 5 and a bit of Terminal 3. You've got Aer Lingus in Terminal 2. In fact, a lot of international airlines on Terminal 2. You've got the Singapore Airlines are over there as well, Air New Zealand. Terminal 4 on the south side has a few others, Air Mauritius, Qatar, are certainly down there. Gatwick, they keep swapping around in Gatwick. I think British Airways is on the south terminal and EasyJet now is on the north terminal, but please correct me if I've got that wrong, because it did swap around not that long ago, actually. Thanks, Richard V. Yeah, that's great. Thomas Mortimer, thanks for joining us. No problem at all. As usual, this will just be uploaded onto YouTube, so you're welcome to watch it anytime you feel fit. I know Friday afternoon probably isn't the best time for everyone, but still, while we're sitting in the current world the way it is, it's currently quite a quiet evening. So hopefully, I always hope that people can come along if they want to. So this is a slight problem in the ToLiss. I'm going to turn down the brightness now, that terrain, just because it's overriding my ability to see these waypoints. But in the real airplane, no, rarely an issue. On the old screens, you have to have all of this as bright as you can, and it's still quite tricky to see them at times. Right, how are we doing? Distance to go, 114. Yeah, okay, let's start down. So I think we'll start off flight level 100, and we'll go managed. Thrust idle des. What was our issue? I shouldn't say that. It's our MSA. Max flight level 80 for there, but from here, max flight level 100. So yeah, we'll go down to flight 100 to start off with. Now this is where you have to watch it carefully, and I've done this in a previous stream where I've almost oversped, because the airplane will just nose down and it can be too aggressive. Once you've got a gap from this top bug to the red bar, it's fine, but for now, a bit of an issue. I'm really hoping ToLiss adds the VLS increase when you use the speed brake. It's really noticeable on the 321, and it's something pilots will think about in real life all the time, especially for the descent and approach. So here we go, it's still increasing, and this speed here will increase all the way up to whichever I've set. So it should be trying to maintain decimal 7.8 in the middle, and then it's got this sort of 20 knot speed range it can fly in. But luckily, because we've only started at 340, the red bar is increasing around us as well. So once that hits 300, it should stop increasing and we'll have a bit of space. Yeah, Pavel, that's a good point from Simon. You can always look it up if you're doing that flight yourself and you want to know for sure. Then yeah, absolutely, it's definitely available. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Virgin Atlantic at Terminal 3 at Heathrow. I'm not sure where they are in Gatwick. Yeah, there's loads. Stansted would be another one. I'm not entirely sure how Stansted's terminal system works at the moment. A lot of Ryanair there, but there we go. Right, so we're looking like we're on profile. Let's get a constraint. That'd certainly be more useful at this point. Heading straight in. I think what we'll do is we'll fly the RNAV downwind just to have a look at the terrain and then get ourselves ready and vector ourselves in. And we can use a few of our vectoring tips from my radar vectors video. So what do we got here? Descent procedure, altitude button pull. Well, I pushed it, but that's fine. Open descent mode till pushed, idle thrust. Speed brakes, half, max level pilot gauge. That's changed now. Mateo's kindly changed that. That's only true in the 320 series. The 319 and 321, you have full. Speed button pull for open speed. Open speed isn't really a phrase, but yeah, if you pull the speed, you'll just select it. But we're using descent, so I want it all managed. That way it can stay at idle. Monitor the sync rate, 6,000 feet per minute. We are doing that. 6,000 is quite hard to reach. I did it in one of my previous videos by accelerating with idle thrust and using the speed brake, but in a normal descent you wouldn't expect to see that. Right, let's go to another wing view. Oh, it seems to be using slightly different. The audio hasn't changed. Oh, I must have fiddled with the setting somewhere wrong here. Pavel, I think EasyJet are in Luton and Gatwick. Oh yeah, everyone knows. Everyone said both. Excellent. Sadly, I've had to go back to the original texture on this water. I did change it to some nice blue ones, but with Vulcan it seemed to give grid patterns, which I've seen in previous videos, and it wasn't so ideal. So I've changed it back to the more darker, less appealing blue. You'd hope in the Mediterranean you get slightly more turquoise, look a bit warmer, more appealing for a bit of a swim. Right, how are things going in here? So yeah, we've only been going about an hour. Excellent. Everything looking pretty reasonable. I wonder if we could see Matteo's been following us. Can't see him. I haven't seen him on TCAS. I know last time we managed to have a TCAS RA mid-flight. Maybe he's had to go somewhere else. Pavel saying, "Wizz Air only Luton." They certainly were. I don't know if they've started Gatwick. These are 5 things they might have. And run pilots, yeah, that's currently all my bot says. So we've got the Discord and the flight plan for the day, in case those are of use to you. How's the delay going? If anyone noticed it, it seems to be quicker on my end. As long as the qualities are right for you guys, and that's worked out quite well, I'd say so far. So RAS, let's have a look at this. So this was recommended on the Discord, XRAS, and we got configuration. I must admit I've only ever heard the female version, so I usually try and tick that for voice gender female. But I can't quite get it to save, so it seems to revert. And this has got a lot of extra features. Approach runway on ground. So as I said, the RAS system is optional. It's used by some airlines and not by others. I know there are some really clever versions of it that will account for flaps and whether the runway's wet. It will ask you things like that, and it will judge if there's a tailwind. But you can also just get really basic ones that just tell you when you've entered a runway or not. It often won't stop you entering the runway, and by that I mean going over the holding point, but it might stop you actually rolling onto the tarmac of the runway. So it certainly has a safety use, even if it doesn't save you from getting in trouble. But the safety obviously will be more important than that. It's quite alarming sometimes if you're not used to it on all your airplanes to suddenly get shouted at by a big loud voice. It's quite overwhelming in the flight deck. You can't miss it, which after all is the point. But there we are. Okay, still no control, it looks like, so this should be a nice and simple approach. Still on Unicom. We've got some other airplanes talking. If we'd gone to our alternate, there's somebody there, but there we go. I was going to do, there was an event, I was going to do the city pair, but sadly it would have been quite late at night, so it didn't quite work out time-wise. And this is the time really where, yeah, you just, it can be quite mesmerizing if you sit after your 4th flight of the day, you've been up since 4 a.m. And the sun's beaming into the flight deck and it's getting really hot. This is where you have to sort of try and draw yourself into focusing, because if you sit here from top of descent having done your brief and watching these numbers just scroll by, you soon go into a bit of a daze. So it's really important you watch that and make sure you don't let it go too far. Cabin's depressurizing nicely. Fuel situation, 3 tons now burnt, so that would be 4, 5, 6, 7.3, so that's good. Simon Taylor saying, yeah, with BA and Virgin scaling down at Gatwick, there may be lots of new airlines. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen. Thomas Mortimer said, seen an Airbus video about ROWROPS. Oh, I don't know what that is. Please do fill us in if you know. Ryan Videos 94, thank you for coming along. Where can I get the XRAS configuration from? Do you mean the program, the plugin, or do you mean the actual config that I'm using? Because the plugin was somebody very kindly, I've forgotten the name, so apologies, but somebody kindly put it into the Discord. So I haven't, it was available on the org store. In terms of the config I've got set up, I'm not happy with it yet. I need to adjust it slightly and figure out how to make it save properly. Pavel saying there is company behind us, so that must be Matteo still coming along. Excellent. How are we doing? Can't quite see them. TCAS is already set to below. That may not be helping the situation. I'm surprised there's no one in Barcelona. I imagined that somebody would come along and control it, usually on a Friday evening, but clearly it's not quite as busy as that normally. Ryan Videos 94. I have the ToLiss but don't have the config. Well, the config for the RAS is simply It's just the plugin. It's a separate plugin. I don't think it applies. Well, this was all automatic. This just happened when I first loaded it in. So I don't even think it's specifically set for the ToLiss yet. That's why these numbers are probably a bit wrong. I mean, minimum takeoff weight and so on. Yeah, I mean this is probably just standard things. So I'll have a work on that and see if I can get a better sort of setup going that seems more suitable, and then maybe we can share that at some point in the future. Tango Delta, perhaps one day you can stream a flight to Gatwick and do the Gatwick challenge. It's a bit of fun. Okay. So I think I know what you mean, but what is the Gatwick challenge to you guys? I'll be curious to know. I've heard a few different things over the years in simulators. Thomas Mortimer, runway overrun warning and runway overrun protection. So that's going to be on the A380 and 350. Like RAS, it'll warn you if it thinks you'll overrun before the end on touchdown, and it'll warn you if you need to apply more braking. There you go. Yeah, that seems like a great idea, especially on heavy airplanes. And I know that some short-haul Airbuses have a similar feature in their RAS system, or maybe I'm maybe I'm confused. Maybe we're talking entirely about what you're talking about, and RAS isn't that clever. I know that they have one that can say things like maximum braking and that sort of thing. It's certainly not a requirement at the moment. Most short-haul Airbuses don't have it. You'd have to pay a lot of money to have it fitted. So as ever, it won't get done automatically unless it becomes a requirement. Some things improve naturally or legally, like TCAS. There's different modes of TCAS now added that have come along, but certainly not the RAS system yet, not requirements. Ryan Videos is asking, I don't have my callouts on takeoff, but I have them on landings. Any idea why that is, or if there's a sound pack I need to fix it? What callouts, may I ask, are you expecting on takeoff? I know that if you're expecting callouts from the co-pilot, there is a way to do that. That's mentioned in the Discord. But what callouts are you talking about there? Because I don't think there's any automatic callouts on takeoff in the Airbus, certainly not with the radio altimeter. Here we go, we're getting a nice view now as we head into Barcelona. I know the scenery here is quite good. I had a look at it yesterday. A little bit of a frame rate hog, but we shall see. Where's the airport? Can we see it yet? Not quite. Unless I'm looking in the wrong place. Easily done. So we are now passing 10,000 feet. We can go all the way down to flight level minimum 70. So let's go down to 70 after Charlie Lima Echo. The managed descent path has been quite conservative today, unusually conservative actually. It's giving us lots of spare room. So 10,000 feet, let's put on the LS push buttons, make sure we're ready for our landing. Bravo Charlie Alpha is now identified. It's identified because we've got the lettering written there. If that wasn't there, we'd have to go and do it by the audio. There it is, Bravo Charlie Alpha. No DME yet, probably because we're a bit far out. In real life, the DME displays quite early actually. Sometimes it displays before the identification does. So that's looking pretty good. I've forgotten this a few times. Let's put the cabin crew seatbelt signs on, landing lights on, in case anyone's having a nice Friday afternoon fly around here. EMR says, yeah, they've approved it for 320CO, but yeah, absolutely not a requirement. So those engines are really revving up here. There we go. Simon Taylor, Gatwick challenges takeoff, turn through 180, touch and go under the North Terminal Bridge, turn 180 and land on the runway. Yes, that was what I was expecting, and I imagine there's a certain time you have to do it in. So yeah, that could be certainly an idea for the future. Thanks, Richard V, for adding that field of view calculator into the plugin section. Very kind. Thanks for the work on that. Okay, so I think what we can do now is distance to the airport. Let's see, I think we'll go straight in. 39 miles, yeah, let's do that. So it wouldn't be unrealistic for air traffic now to send us straight to Tebler. I've certainly would expect something similar. We're heading out over the water. I'm visual. Let's descend down. Get our QNH out. Or set 1005. Better do a broadcast, I suppose. Barcelona approach. Alitalia 216. Descending towards Tebla for the ILS runway 25 right, currently 40 miles east of Barcelona. Okay, right, let's put it into vertical speed because we are probably pretty much on profile. I think 5,000 feet should cover us for the terrain now, and we'll start to see the runway in front of us. So we've made it here in daylight. I suppose it's summer, that's a good thing. We're flying around at this time of year. It's quite nice flying around in summer. The weather's just generally a bit milder at this time of year until the thunderstorms start to really build up. In July, August, thunderstorms can cause real headaches around Europe, and you just hope that you're flying on the day where it's just nice and clear, like we had the last few weeks in the UK. So we're going to head in and we'll do this approach raw data. Let's have a look. It thinks we're about 1350 feet low on the profile because we've got 33 miles to go. Yeah, not unreasonable. It had a D where it's going to begin the approach phase just before Tebla, but I think that's a little bit too late. So I think I'll do it now actually. I'm going to activate the approach phase to make sure it's done because I certainly don't want to forget it. And then I'm going to pull the speed. So we're doing 250 knots because I don't want to slow down just yet. We've got a bit of space. 30 miles to go to the airport. 8,000 feet. Pretty much bang on profile. So I'll carry on 3-degree descent from here. We're doing over the ground 250. So that means I'm going to need to do about, let's do 1,200 feet per minute for now. That should keep us something close to 3 degrees. There we go, DME works. So yeah, they've got it coded to work within 30 miles. That seems to be an X-plane sort of thing. Okay. Here we go. What else can we do? What else have I missed, everyone? Do please tell me if I'm embarrassing myself right now. For once I've remembered the cabin crew. That's good. Let's see if we can zoom in. Tebla's 2,300 feet. We're out over the water now, so I'm going to set that in here. 2,300. And I won't arm the approach until I get some sort of useful display, something a little bit better. Because I'm a bit fast, I'm going to descend at 1,500 feet per minute. I might do a little bit of a level segment whilst I slow down. As I said, I don't want to reach Tebla too fast. I want to be flap 2. Actually, no, Tebla's before that point. Sorry, it's about 4 miles before that point. So I can be a little bit high at Tebla. Flap 180 is a maximum. I think that'll be reasonable. 11 miles from the runway. We should have no problem. Temperature outside 21, so we don't need any anti-ice. Oh, what's going on here? There we go. Excellent. Sorry, there's the commands. Yeah, there's only 2 commands. I see someone's trying to post office. I'm trying to use the the plugins. If you go to the Discord, you'll see some of the plugins or information used. Ian Morris, how much to rely on the vertical green bug as opposed to your rule of thumb? I would absolutely always have a rule of thumb in my head, and I think everybody does, because this could just be wrong because of coding. As I said earlier, when I wasn't direct to Tebla, it was showing me all that other route, so it's just relying on whatever altitudes it had set in it. So I use my rule of thumb more heavily, I'd say, than the green bug, and the green bug's just a nice confirmation. If I see there's a big difference, then yeah, I'll definitely check that I've got it right, or why the bug's doing it. Because if the coding's way off, it could mean your fuel predictions are off or anything like that. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Okay, managed speed. How are we doing on weight? 72.4. Yeah, great. So we can start slowing down. Probably at 1,500 feet per minute. We're not actually going to slow down. I've managed the speed, but look at that. It's not good enough. And that's why I descended a little bit fast. 20 miles out, 4,000 feet, we're low. So I can now wind back the vertical speed. And let the speed come back. Something to check here. Inbound course is going to be 245. Okay. So we can see we're coming back in onto the profile, but I know that that's not quite where I need to be, because at 4,000 feet I need to be 12 miles from the runway. I'm actually 18 miles, so I've got a bit of room here. Let's go to flaps 1 and let's go for our raw data. So let's not mess this up. Autopilot off. Flight directors can go off, and we'll bring up the bird. Set the inbound track of 245. Now I'm going to carry on this heading and intercept, keeping a rough rate of descent where we were. There's some airlines called a green vertical bug yo-yo. That's interesting. It's also called the donut, I know. I think in the Neos as well, it can be a different color. It depends on which specification Airbus you have. As I've said before, the Airbus is amazing with how many little deviations and variances there can be. Okay, 15 miles out, we just below 4,000 feet, so we're pretty good. So I don't mind getting a little bit high on that. So how am I going to judge this now? Well, I know I'm going to Tebler and then I'm going to intercept the localizer somewhere around there. But basically, I'm just going to look for the localizer to come alive, and that would be a good cue to start our right turn. The wind is from the left today, so I'm going to expect to not need much of a turn really to get ourselves over onto that inbound track, because I'm going to have to keep my heading slightly left of that localizer. I think I'll do a video on tracking and inbound and outbound of radials and so on for anybody who's interested at some point in the future. Okay, 13 miles out, yeah, 200, just over 200 knots, so that's fine. We'll put out flap 2 shortly. I think I'll get rid of that view and we'll just work like this. There we go. Expecting the radio altimeter, nice and easy today, 2,500 feet, which would be pretty much over the water, so it should match up perfectly. There's that noise because we're getting to 700 feet of that target altitude. There's the localizer coming alive, so I'm going to start my right turn, getting ourselves onto that inbound. Let's get ready to level off, so start reducing that rate of descent. And that was probably a little bit too much. You see, there we go. So because of that wind, it's blown me onto the localizer quite easily. Again, this little blue bug should be taller. I don't know why it's quite so small in the ToLiss. As a result, it's easy to miss. It almost blends in. In the real Airbus, it's a bit taller, so it doesn't get hidden behind things. Right, localizer's now getting a bit more reasonable. Let's go to flaps 2. And get that rate of descent off. And now, because I put the bird slightly left of that inbound course, we should gradually drift onto the localizer. Alitalia 216, ILS approach, currently 9 miles from 25 right. Okay, as that bug comes in, we'll move over there. Speed's coming back, 180 knots, 8 miles, that's fine. And let's start to get it centered. You may hear my joystick squeaking in the background as we do this. Here's the glide slope. So getting the airplane to sit, the bottom of the bird, that fuselage, to sit on 5 degrees should work out. There's our radio altimeter as we pass 2,500, exactly as we hoped, and we're in speed mode, so that's good. Let's set our going altitude of 3,000 feet. Okay, sinking a little bit much, there we go. And the speed's way back now. There's that buzzer again for 700 feet difference. And you've got to be careful because we don't typically use, as I've said before, it's quite common to leave the auto thruster in when you're hand flying the Airbus. So you have to sort of take into account those power changes coming in and out. There's 2,000 feet. Let's go. Gear down. Flap 3 and flap full. And let's not mess this bit up because you get a bit of a float. Arm those. Lights on. Oh dear. And then looking away. Normally pilot monitoring would get the joy of doing all that. Alitalia 216, final approach, 25 right to land, 5 miles. Okay, here we go then. Starting to see the runway out there. Is there an airplane on it? There is. There's a KL 1670, so hopefully they heard me. And we are, there we go. A bit hazy today, but quite a nice approach. Lots of shipyards and so on in Barcelona. We'll have a look in the replay out at the window and we'll see what's going on. I think there's quite good scenery here, seems to be. And we just want to vacate to the left, as we said, to head over to that terminal. I suppose I've cheated a bit, had the window available. I suppose what I could have done is just zoomed in on the PFD and we could have flown it and seen what's up out the window. We could do that next time. Let's ding the cabin. That cabin check thing isn't on all Airbus. There's a modification, but it's a really good one. Before it, you'd have to either we go stable at 1,000 feet. Before it, you'd have to call up the cabin crew and have a conversation and work out if it's secured or not and so on, which is quite distracting on final approach. And there they go. Runway looks clear. There's a little landing procedure up there. Yeah, I'll see. We'll see how the flare works out.
Approaching 5, right.
We absolutely are. I think that's a good feature. In case you got the wrong runway, you might be looking at a taxiway, especially on a day like this where there's no lights on. So it seems quite a reasonable thing to have. So final approach, everything's sequenced. We've got the fuel in tanks for a go around, all in a good place. Let's get that glide slope slightly back in check, but don't want to be too reactive to the glide slope now or you'll just destabilize everything. If I pull up now to meet it, the engines will spool up and we'll go high immediately. As I said before, from here in X-Plane, I think the ILS is a little bit oversensitive. It's a bit better in real life. It tends to dive down here. Let's keep our rate of descent going. Oh, let's get back to the center line.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 10, 5.
And reverses. Got reverse green, decel, spoilers are up, that's all looking good. And let's go for the next high speed. Sorry about this Lua script. I added it because I wasn't sure if the one with the overlay was much good, but this is quite obtrusive. But there we go. Let's make our left turn here, get the speed below 50 knots. Now we're back to taxi speed, so we can go to forward idle. And we'll vacate left. Excellent, and here we are into Barcelona. Let's get ourselves clear of the runway. Then we'll come to stop and do our preparation for taxi in. And I said, where have we come to? Can we go left? I think we can go left. Yeah, this is where we wanted to be. So let's all clear around. Let's go left at first, then we'll work it out from there. Get out of the way for Matteo. Echo 5. Runway vacated by Alitalia 216. Okay, let's bring it to a stop. Okay, we don't want to blind anybody, so let's get those lights off. Let's see what this asks for, and then let's get rid of the speed brakes. Flaps to 0. What's the temperature? Is it above 30? No, 23, so they can just go to 0. Transponder can just go to transponder. It says to time the engines. We only need to time them if we've used max reverse, but there we go, why not? Strobe lights, auto's fine. I think that's adjusted in the new version of this checklist. And then it's saying pack 1 would go off because we could consider using less fuel by doing that. What we might do is let's turn off pack 2 and then we can do a single engine taxi in. Okay, I'm going to taxi along Echo and I'm going to take Echo 3, Juliet 5. So we'll just carry on straight ahead. So brakes released. As I said, we'll go and have a look at the replay shortly. Yeah, very quiet here. I was expecting more. Oh, a few guesses on the landing rate. There we go. So yeah, it's I think it came up at 200, something like that. The thanks Swappy, you're very kind. The message that script gives, where it shows you the flashing afterwards, I think it's a bit misleading. The G-force it shows is always lower than in real life. I mean, a normal landing with quite a comfortable landing, and I must stress that the most important part of the landing is not how smooth it is on touchdown. That's one of many criteria. Mainly we're looking for obviously the right part of the runway at the right speed, not going off the side or anything like that. Certainly within the touchdown zone, these things. But in terms of those numbers, yeah, I mean, if you landed and it said 1.3 G in the aeroplane printout, that would be pretty good. Quite normal. 1.5 G, you'd probably have felt that. 1.7 it would feel quite rough. So those G numbers are, I think, slightly off. I think if you had anything that printed out and said 1.0 something, then that would have felt very smooth indeed. Okay, so we're going to go to the south side. This looks quite good scenery. I don't know if this is an included airport in a Steam version of X-Plane or not. So right, let's think about single engine taxi. Let's see if I can get this right because it's been a while. We need the APU for that. So we'll start that when it gives us a chance. There we go. We need the APU because we have to power all the electrics of the airplane so that all the fire systems are armed. Some airplanes are modified so that the fire systems are armed even without the APU, so you can actually just taxi in on one engine and no APU. But I'm going to assume this airplane is not like that. And this is the while taxiing. That seems to be ready for before takeoff, so we don't need that one. Get rid of the LS buttons. Okay, we're going to make our right turn here. We don't want to cross that runway, hence the nice flashing lights called the wigwags, as they're commonly called. And Mateo's vacated behind us. There we go. Company trip to... there he is. Oh, he made the exit before us. Very good. And then I'm going to take this right turn here. When that AP is available, we'll shut down one of the engines. Okay, a little bit fast. The magic of shutting down an engine as you taxi in is that it will just save the brake temperatures. So as we can see, they're already pretty hot. So there we go, AP is available. So I'm just going to take off Engine Master 2. We always do single engine on engine 1. I'm going to turn on the yellow electric pump, and that way the hydraulics are going to be powered from the pump. If I can find it on here. Oh my goodness, there it is. And that stops the PTU running, so you can see the PTU is off. So we get this nice, quiet aeroplane. Not too much strain on the PTU. Right, let's pick a stand. What does everyone fancy? 258 seems pretty reasonable. Just coming up. We haven't got that fancy guidance system here, sadly. Let's bring the airplane down to slow down. See if for once I can get this turn on right. I've had a lot of trouble doing it lately. Now here we go. On one engine, you could find this happens where the airplane does not have the excess energy you're used to. So now I've made my life quite tricky. Luckily, engine 1 is running, which is on the left-hand side. So if I spool it up a bit, it will actually help turn us in. Turn off those lights, which you can see reflecting in the building. Yeah, nice graphics. Yeah, really kit as ever with X-Plane. Always impressive. But yeah, if you had slowed down that much on one engine and then you only had engine 2 running, for example, or if you were trying to turn left, that could make life very difficult. Okay, now without that guidance system, I'm going to cheat, and we can see that engine sitting there nice and quiet. Oh, and this is if this was uphill, yeah, you would not want to come to a stop on one engine. It can be really tricky to get the airplane moving again. So yeah, parking on one engine is surprisingly a really concentrated task, and it probably takes as much focus as trying to land a lot of the time. Right, here we go then. So the parking brake is definitely set with that AP available. We don't need that yellow electric pump, so let's get rid of that. Let's shut down that engine 1. Passengers can walk around, and there's that PTU running in the background. Beacon can turn off. And here we go. Lovely. So let's go have a quick look at the replay. But obviously, thank you everyone who's leaving now. Thank you for coming along to watch the flight. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. And there'll be more tutorials, more live streams coming soon. So thank you very much for coming along. Okay, let's hope that this works and that we can get the replay to work. Firstly, as I should have done, yeah, we've disconnected from VATSIM. And let's move ourselves back out to final approach. So here we go. Yeah, Barcelona's got a lot of scenery. So this setup seems to have done quite well. There we go. There's Barcelona in the background. Seems to have done quite well at loading it all. I'm quite pleased with this plugin script, which has helped the simulator run at a reasonable rate. There's a lot of shipyards around here, like in Genoa, so it can be quite interesting to fly over. Oh, we've had another subscription, so thank you very much from SVA Termic. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, very kind. Right, let's have a look. Get rid of that. And we'll go, let's have a passenger view. Mateo said he wasn't worried about turnaround time, auto-brake medium. Yeah, absolutely. That's often the way. If you have brake fans and you can use auto-brake medium, then it can help you out quite a lot. Flight 24, more like a live tutorial, but that's very kind. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it as well, Dougal. Thank you. And Richard, thank you very much for coming along. I'm glad it was useful for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. Ian Morris, no problem at all. Yes, I will enjoy relaxing the rest of the evening. Pamela Bonham, where's the tennis ball? Run Pilot Aviation. What does FCOM say about raw data and manual flying? Depends on company's policy. Yes, that would be company policy, but certainly there's nothing wrong with practicing your skills. I'm sure most airlines will allow some sort of some sort of manual flight, because certainly you need to keep your skills sharp. Otherwise, it will soon fade if you just always do all the automatic approaches. Excellent with the shadow. I like that. There we go. On the ground. Something I should have mentioned, and we'll see that shortly, is that Barcelona has a wide runway. So you would definitely consider, and you can see it on final approach, you'd consider that that can sometimes distort the way you're looking at things, and it would make you flare at the wrong points. So if you look about here, let's see, you'd see it's actually quite a wide. I know I was off the centre line, so I think it's 60 meters wide, which would mean you'd think, looking out the window, that you're flaring slightly too early, because you're expecting it to look a bit narrower. So you feel like you're a bit closer, so you'll flare early, and that can lead to floating, which maybe I did a little bit of here. So it's quite interesting. It's something you'd definitely brief if you were flying into Barcelona. Right, let's go to our favourite view, runway. I'll just whiz back a bit to see what's going on if we go further back. Pamela Bonham says, thank you for the information on flight. Yep, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming along. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and there'll be more to come in the near future. And we'll see where we fancy going. Maybe a bit of a flight down to the Gibraltar, I was thinking, or Malaga, somewhere around there on this little tour. Flight 24 makes a great point there. Some airlines have certain conditions where they recommend raw data, weather, location. Yeah, absolutely. It could be that they even set limits. So if the cloud base is below this certain height, you must do an RNS, or you must do an instrument approach, not a visual, things like that. Okay, here we go. Let's see if we can get that to work. Great livery, really like it. Thanks very much to Homer J. I don't know if they've ever seen any of my videos, but I've used their liveries a few times. I think they're great. And there we go. Thank you very much for coming along, everybody. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, and as I said, more videos to come in the near future. Other tutorials, other streams. We'll carry on our little tour around the Mediterranean, I think. But if you have any requests or recommendations, please join our Discords, let me know, and hopefully we can make it happen. Otherwise, that's all for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great evening, and see you again in another video soon. Bye-bye.